All right, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon or good evening, whenever you're watching this. This video is going to be focused on basic probability. So I'm going to focus on understanding what probability and chance are. And it's kind of a cool math topic that we don't spend a lot of time in class on sometimes, but I want to talk about it. So probability is just a part of our world. The easy thing to think of is the lotto. When I think of probability, I start thinking of some of those type things. So, what is the chance you would win the lottery? Well, or how about this? What's the likelihood you would become a famous actor or actress? Well, those words, likelihood, chance, all lead into probability. And probability is the mathematical way of calculating likelihood and chance. So we're gonna do an example here, and I would write this one down if you're taking notes and kind of go through this with me. So here's our story. Mrs. Borst wants to win a giant stuffed animal at the carnival. She decided to go play the Go Fish game. So hopefully you've seen that Go Fish game at the carnival before, the one where all the fish are in the water and you're trying to get them out. Well, here's the story. The game is set up with a tank containing 1 green fish, 3 blue fish, and 6 yellow fish. To win the giant stuffed animal, Mrs. Borst needs to catch a green fish. Well, let's go through what are her chances of winning. So we're going to break this down into steps. Step 1, let's list out the facts. Let's go back through the story. You can even rewind this video to kind of reread the story. But let's list out what we know. So here's what we know. There's 1 green fish, 3 blue, and 6 yellow, for a grand total, if you add that up, of 10 fish in the tank. That's some important facts from the story. So kind of picture it, looks like this. There's my 1 green, 3 blue, and 6 yellow, if you kind of want to picture what that would look like in the tank. Here's step 2. Once we have all the information, the facts written down, let's start calculating what is the probability. So probability of getting green is going to be 1 out of 10. And notice how I'm setting this up. I write P parenthesis green. And in the math world, that means the probability of getting green. And it equals 1/10 because there's 1 green out of 10 total fish. And I'm really good. I'm going to label everything in my fraction. Here's step 3. Once we have our 1/10 answer, we're going to break that answer down into portions. So we're going to convert it basically. We're going to change that fraction into a decimal and a percent. And we know that 1/10 is 0.1 as a decimal. And we know that that would be 10% as a percentage. So I'm going to kind of change that answer into 3 variations. And then my last step, step 4 here, is let's write a sentence. Let's explain our answer and kind of justify what we have. So here's my sentence. There is a 10% chance Mrs. Borst will win the stuffed animal. Or I could say there is a 1/10 chance she will win the stuffed animal. Or there is a 0.1 chance Mrs. Borst will win the stuffed animal. Any of those answers, those 3 answers, the fraction, the decimal, the percent, all work for this problem. And then I'm done. So the big idea here, we're going to try another one, is there's kind of 4 steps. You want to find the facts, write them down. You want to calculate your probability. You want to change it into a decimal and a percent so that you have all 3 examples. You have the percent, the decimal, and the fraction, all representing the problem. And then you want to write a sentence. And if you kind of do all 4 steps, I mean, that kind of encompasses all the work you would want to show to justify that you understand something. So let's try another problem here. What's the probability Mrs. Borst gets a blue fish? If you'd like, you could pause the video and try it by yourself and see if you got this down. Okay, so there are 3 blue out of 10 total fish that you could select from that big tank of fish. Better chances than getting a green because there's 3 chances to get blue instead of just 1 green. But we're going to change 3/10 to a decimal, and we're going to change that to a percent. So we know that that is 0.3 as a decimal, and we know that represents 30%. So like I said, 30% is a better chance than a green fish. And so we write out our sentence. There is a 30% chance Mrs. Borst will get a blue fish. And then we're done, and we have everything put together. So here's another game that you can play at the carnival. Spin to win, one of those games where you have all the different colors and you spin it and you want to see what it lands on. So let's make up a new scenario here. Let's say Mr. Garrett wants to win a prize too. And the spinner has 8 equal sized sections. 4 of the sections are blue, 2 are red, 1 is green, and 1 is yellow. Well, let's go through our steps here. Step 1, facts. So we're going to list out what we know. And here's what we know. I'm going to take the story problem and kind of get it down to bullet points. There are 4 blue, 2 red, 1 green, and 1 yellow. And that adds up for a total of 8 sections on the spinner. So to win a prize, Mr. Garrett must spin a yellow. So let's write out our math. Step 2, probability of getting a yellow. So I write P of yellow. Probability of getting yellow. Well, there's 1 yellow out of 8 total colors, or 8 total sections on the spinner, I should say. So we have a 1/8 chance. And so for step 3, we're going to break that down into decimals and percents. So 1 divided by 8 as a decimal, that's 0.125, and as a percent, that's 12.5%. And so I know that Mr. Garrett has a 12.5% chance of winning, which is not a very high percent, 12%. Depends on how you're looking at it. So I'm going to write out that sentence. There's a 12.5% chance Mr. Garrett will win the game. So kind of at the end here, just to kind of recap, there's theory and there's reality when it comes to probability. We can talk mathematically about Mr. Garrett's chance. We can say he has a 12.5% chance. But if we wanted to experiment, he would actually have to go out and play this game a whole bunch of times to get an experimental probability. So we'll probably make another video about that later. But the big idea here is just remember there's 4 steps. Write out the facts, write out the probability, change it to a percent and a decimal, and write a sentence. And then we'll get into more complicated probability as we build up from here. All right, thanks.